Once you get your files transferred, I've already done it. That's what this is up here. I've already transferred my files, so you don't have to wait for me to do that. So the next thing that we want to do is export our localhost file. So I'm going to go to my localhost, and if you don't remember how to get there, just remember that if you go to localhost/XAMPP, down here on the left is your PHP My Admin link, and it will open up localhost for you. Now, what I've got is I've clicked on my student 18 database that I had created locally, and it's got all my stuff here. What I want to do is I want to export this because I'm going to have to take that file and modify it and then import it up on the server. So I'm going to go up here to export. Format is going to be SQL. We'll say go. I'm going to save this on my desktop, and I'll call it student 018 dash localhost. Let's do that. Okay, so it's going to download that for me. Now I'm going to use Dreamweaver to open that file, and we're going to take a look at what this is doing. When you export, as a reminder, it gives the instructions in the file for importing. Okay, so that's what this is doing. So it's really important that we fix all of the pathways that have references to localhost, because localhost is not going to be valid. It's not going to be a valid reference anymore. All right, so first I want you to do is I want you to go to do a find. Let's go. And by the way, you could be using any other code editor that has a good find and replace feature. You technically could be using, like Notepad or TextEdit, but this, I like the Dreamweaver find and replace because it actually shows you a visual example of all the instances so you can see them, which is really nice. You don't have to scroll through. Anyway, so we're going to look for localhost. Okay, just all lowercase, no forward slashes or anything, and we're going to say find all, and make sure it's set to current document. Okay, so do find all, and so this is what it does for us. This is really nice. Oops, I didn't mean to drag that out of there. Just meant to drag it up. Okay, and so you can peruse through these. What's really useful to know is that in my installation right now, I don't have a ton of stuff in there. So it only came up with, it says down here, 70 items that were found. I've exported databases that were complete and they were quite large, where it's literally found thousands of instances. And also, like, if you write posts and you create absolute links to another page that's in the website, then it's going to write an absolute link using localhost. So if you have a lot of instances of that, then you're going to have a lot more than 70. Another thing to realize is that I don't have a lot of additional plugin things that are set up right now. One of the things that some plugins will do is that they will write certain things with their addresses in. The thing is that if you find the instance of localhost just by itself, then you're probably going to catch what you need to catch. The issue with find and replace, though, is that once you've found the pattern and replaced it, then it can make it really hard to find the pattern again if you didn't catch everything. So you could also do another, if you wanted to be safe, you could do another instance of localhost, like /, we could say find all, and it came out with 69 items. So that kind of tells me right there that if I just keep it at just plain old localhost without doing a /, then I'm a lot safer. So you could do any kind of different number of iterations anyway. So I'm going to find all. And what you want to replace that localhost with, because basically it's the host name. It's where your domain would go, or your subdomain. It's the host name. You want to replace it with the one that you're going to have on the server. So let's do find again. We're going to say localhost, and we're going to replace it with student, and it'll be your number. Okay, so I'm doing 018 because that's what I'm doing as my example. It'll be your student number, leekotner.com. Okay, and I'm just going to replace all instances. I'm going to say replace all. Okay, and it replaced all 70 of those for me. Okay, but we're not done yet. One of the things that you're not going to probably realize until I tell you is that there's also something else that happens. It's not just based on a web pathway, it's also based on an absolute file system pathway where, um, you know, if you're doing something like file uploads or certain kinds of plugins, we'll use an absolute file pathway system in order to keep track of where things are, especially the file upload stuff. Then you're going to need to change something else that's an absolute path, and you're not going to know what that is until I tell you what it is. So anyway, if I go here and I do, let me just show you find. In my file system, if you wanted to get an idea, let's look here at FileZilla just to give you an idea. In my file system, the absolute file pathway to my htdocs folder, or to my, let's take it a step further, let's go to project 2. To my project 2 folder is this, /applications, /XAMPP, XAMPP files and so on. Yours might be on the C drive if you're on Windows. Anyway, but the thing is that I can look for XAMPP because I know that I'm running inside of a XAMPP application, and that's installed in a XAMPP folder. If you're using MAMP or something like that, you could do a search for MAMP. Anyway, so what I'm going to do in Dreamweaver is I'm going to do a search for the word XAMPP. And I'm going to do find all. And you see that it did find some stuff. That tells me that it's using the absolute directory path, because I'm not talking about XAMPP anywhere else in the application. I don't have it stored in a database as like part of the text or anything like that. If you think that you are talking somewhere about XAMPP inside of your file and you're afraid that you might replace the wrong thing, then you could look up, XAMPP files or, XAMPP/htdocs if you're on Windows or whatever. Anyway, these are the ones that are all looking at absolute paths. If I double click on it, it'll take me to it, and it tells me, it's got a whole bunch of these things here. All right, and this is, I think for the Akismet, for the Akismet plugin that it's trying to use. Okay, and then here's another one, that's the same instance, another one. So far, a lot of these are in the same exact instance. So far, I don't have anything to deal with file uploads, but you never know what you're going to find. All right, so it's really important that you look for that absolute pathway. Now, and it can be the difference between your server version that you're importing working or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace, first of all, let's close this for a second. What I need to do is I need to see what it is that it's trying to get at. All right, so you can see that it's going all the way down to my project 2 folder. Well, if you knew you were going to change the name of project 2, then you would have already needed to do this with the localhost thing as well. But if you wanted to change the name of project 2 and call your new installation on the server something else, like like in my example, I think I'm doing breweries, I could call it SD breweries or something like that, you would want to change this too. But really all that's really important is that we get this pathway right here. And I'm not even going to take that last /, I'm just going to take applications /XAMPP files all the way to htdocs. And you would do the same kind of thing from the root level on your Windows computer if you're on Windows down to htdocs. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to do, let's do another find and replace. All right, and then I'm going to find that, but this time I'm going to replace it with something else. This part you're not going to know. This is something that I have to tell you. It's something for the server. And some servers you can write a script that will allow you to find the absolute pathway for your document root and stuff, but a lot of professionally hosted servers will mask it so that the path that you can pull using the server superglobal array isn't really the one that's going to work. So, and then also you might be surprised because you might think that you're looking for student 018 .leekotner.com as part of the path, but that's not the case because student 018 is actually a subdirectory of leekotner.com. So it's a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to tell you what the pathway is. And the only way that I know what that pathway is because I am the user who has access to the cPanel for my web hosting. You guys don't have access to that cPanel, but if you have your own web hosting, the web host will always tell you what your absolute pathway is for things like this. It's going to be somewhere in your cPanel. Different host providers will have it in different places. So this is it for our server. So you would replace your absolute file path. This is what it is on my computer because it's a Mac. And then what the server is this like strange little number here. So you might have to pause and blow this up. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to replace all. I'm going to save as. So I'll do File, Save As. And then in this case, I'm going to change it from localhost to server. All right, and I'll save that on my desktop as well. So now I've got that saved. I have two different versions. I'll close that out. And what I can do now is go to my web version up on the cloud for phpMyAdmin. Okay, and if you don't remember how to get there, all right, this is not localhost, so I'm going to close localhost out. To get there, if you go to Blackboard and you look under class server connection information, what you need is going to be in that XLS spreadsheet if you don't remember how to connect here. In this case, I already have a student 018 database installed with tables currently in it. Now you might not, if you haven't already installed something on the server for the first time, then yours is probably going to say your student number, and then instead of here where it says 14, yours will probably say 0. You'll have 0 tables. But if you've already installed something for the first time, you know, just to test or backup or whatever, then what you're going to have to do is drop all of these tables so that you can import new ones. Now, the thing that's important to understand is that if you really are nervous about doing that, then what you can do is you could back this up if you want, you know, if you feel like that's necessary. Like if you've really been working on this a while and you're really afraid of screwing up what you already have on the server, then, you know, you can back this up. You could go here to export. I would be able to export all of this stuff in a SQL file. I could save it as a file. You know, I could say something like server, you know, project 2, and then you could back that up and it would download it to your computer. So if I say go, it's going to ask me, if you have yours set up to ask you where you want to save it, then I could just say, instead of server project 2, we'll say back up before reinstalling or something like that. All right, so that's really up to you if you want to do that. But that's not necessary. So now that I've backed up my server installation of my database, what I can do is go ahead and click back onto my student 018, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to drop all of these tables. So I'm going to check all of them off, and then when it says with selected, I'm going to say drop, and it's going to say, are you sure you really want to do this? Because you can undo it, by the way. Okay, and now I have 0 tables up there. And if I were to go and try to connect to my project 2, it would see that I don't have any tables and it would ask me to install it. But don't do that. Okay. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go and I'm going to import that file that I had created, the one right here called student018-server. That's the one we just modified. Okay, and then click go. And it might take just a second for it to do all of those queries. And there you go. So now we've got our new data up there. And if you wanted to, you know, double check it, you could look inside of here and see that they don't say localhost and stuff. But we're just going to take a leap of faith and move to the next step. So that next step then could be to go back to this page where it was trying to prompt us for the installation. And by the way, you might not have gotten this prompt for installation if your WP config file was incorrect. You might have gotten something that said instead that you couldn't connect to the database or something like that. But let's just real quickly, let's just check this out. If I go back to project 2, I load it again, and it's going to take a second. You see that it's got my website now and the links are actually working. Okay, so I've got my contact page, my widgets are working, things like that. Now, if yours isn't working, the next thing you're going to have to do then is go and edit that WP config file that's on the server.